Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. I just worked on this bog forest last month and now it needs pruning once again. We are due for rain today, so I'm going to try and get the pruning done before it rains. My cube is almost empty, so I'm almost out of rainwater, so I do hope it rains. Let's fly in now and have a look at the forest so you can see how much it's grown. This larch tree out front has really long extensions on it. The new one that I planted, you can see it's growing quite well. The spruce back here, the black spruce, have all kinds of shoots, and you can see all the buds on the new shoots quite clearly. So it just needs a general trim. You can see this one really extended. So my goal with these trees is to keep the branches very tight to the trunk, so it's a very skinny conical form to these trees, something like you see in a northern bog forest. So that's what I'll be doing, is pruning up all the trees nice and tight. Just, every time I prune them, hopefully they get a little better and a little more miniature looking. I also have to watch in this forest that the trees grow at about the same rate. I don't want these larch trees, growing twice as fast as the spruce back here. Otherwise, the whole planting will get out of proportion. So I've got to keep all the trees kind of pruned, compact, and growing at a similar rate. I usually start by pruning on the right-hand side of the forest, but today I'm going to start with this larch on the left here. So on these extensions here, you can see there are buds that have already formed along the branch. So I can utilize those, I can prune to those, or I can just ignore the buds and prune back to some healthy needles on the branch. And hopefully that will activate dormant buds at the base of each needle. And I think I have to do that. The buds are too far away from the that conical form to be of any use. There is a bud way back here, so I'm just going to prune to make the tree compact. Pruning that off. I'm going to try eating this. Ooh, more bitter. In spring they were really kind of sweet and tasty. Now they're turning more bitter, that's for sure. So you can see some of the back budding in here. You can see all these little new branches forming. That's really exciting to get that. It allows you to keep the tree really compact. So here again, I'm going to just prune back all these branches, getting that really slim conical form to them, to the tree. And I'm going to keep the branches all the way down to the ground. I think that's a cool look for a natural type forest. And I'm just kind of doing a rough pruning now, almost like a profile pruning. And then I'll come back in and see if I need to make any adjustments. I can see I need to do a little weeding too. There's some of that Irish moss in here. There it is. Pull that out. Nasty stuff. So what'll make these trees look really special and miniature is keeping that tight conical form and getting branch ramification. And eventually, layers in the branches to make them look really miniature. Like my dead tree is, some of the branches are falling off of it. Oh well. That's part of the evolution of this forest, is, things will change over time. I see a black spruce growing through here. So anyway, I'll keep pruning this conical form. And again, it's pretty well like a profile prune. Anything sticking out of the profile gets pruned back. You always keep some of the new growth. So this is my leader on my tree. The previous leader on these trees got pruned off by the rabbits. That's why these trees are so small. So it's kind of got a dead section up the back. And eventually I'll probably replace that, cutting off the dead part, and then I'll have the living leader growing up. But for now I'm keeping that dead stump as part of the tree. Okay, I've got that tree pruned up to a tight conical form. Now the question is, can I get it tighter? Even a tighter conical form. Right now it looks a bit like a Christmas tree, and it's a little full. So that will take a bit of work to get that thinned out. So any branches that are, I want these lower branches to kind of be drooping or horizontal. So anything kind of sticking up, I'm going to prune off. Like there's one right here that's kind of sticking up. So it comes off. So I'm just kind of cleaning out the branches so there's space between them. Some of these downward needles can be plucked out to create some, some spaces between the branches for air circulation. Larches are deciduous trees, so they can be, partially defoliated if they're strong. So you can see I've kind of created a bit of separation in this tree. And I'll try and do that for all the branches. Here's another branch that's kind of sticking up here. So I prune that back. And I may even prune that back further. I think I will. Like that. So you can see I'm starting to get more separation now. There's a branch kind of sticking up here. I'll prune that back. Pruning off some of these downward facing needles here. So I'm just kind of partially defoliating it now. Just kind of pinching out some of the tufts of needles. So that tree is looking much more miniature now with all that separation I'm doing. And it's something, you just keep working away at it, and eventually it'll look really miniature. It's, years down the road. You just keep working, pruning off the worst branches, keeping the best ones. And slowly your tree evolves and turns into something quite spectacular. But it takes time. So I think that tree is looking fantastic. I think it's done. I've finished one tree. So I'm going to work on all the larch first. I'll finish all the larch so they look like this one. Similar techniques. And then after that, I'll tackle the spruce. If you compare the larch that I just finished pruning up versus the one over here, which is really long and wild, you can see the difference. This one looks much more miniature. So I'll start working on this one next. Okay, I think that tree's looking quite nice now. I finished the second larch here, so you can see it kind of matches the style of the first one I pruned up. Kind of tall, slim conical shape with separation between the branches. All right, I'll start on the next one now. Kind of exciting working on this forest. Pruned back from really bushy trees back to slim miniature looking trees. So that one here is a branch growing up from the tree behind there. So I'm keeping that to grow as a separate kind of tree. My wife and I were out in the spiral orchard today planting some trees that we grew from seed. They were getting quite large, so they got put out in the orchard. They're no longer little seedlings growing in a garden plot there. Oh, there's a long one growing up the back here. Sometimes if you just pull these moss clumps out, the spores are already on top of the soil, and it grows in again very quickly. So if your moss is too thick, you can either scissor prune it back or just pull it out, and Usually more moss will grow in. You can kind of see the root base of this tree now. Okay, so that third larch is pruned up. So I'm going to do this branch here. It's getting kind of a bit tall. I'll prune it off to there. And I'll work on the one in behind here. Prune back these new shoots a bit. Do some needle plucking. Getting a little dense here. So this needle plucking also helps reduce the vigor of the tree. It takes, you know, there's less photosynthesis going on with the fewer needles. So it kind of keeps the vigor a little less vigorous. So it grows a little more like a compact tree instead of growing wild shoots. Part of this branch from the dead tree is interfering with this larch. I'm just going to prune a bit of it off. Yep. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That new one is the 5th tree. I'm not going to prune the new one yet. It's still, you know, getting rooted. So I'll let the top grow, gain vigor, and then I'll prune it off. But these other 4 here, I can definitely work on those. They need reduction. All right, let's get our conical form going. There's a vertical shoot. I don't want that. Take that right off. Another vertical one here that can come right off. Okay. I think this little tree's pretty good. It's fairly tight now. I mean, if I could get a little tighter, I would, but that's all I can do for now. Okay. I'll start on these other trees behind here. So they haven't grown a whole lot, these other ones. I mean, they're healthy, but there's not a lot of new growth coming on them at all. So we'll just, you know, little needle thinning is about all I can do to them for now. And just kind of let them gain vigor. Remember, all these trees were at different strengths when I planted them. Some had a good root system, other ones didn't. These trees were all pruned by rabbits, so some were pruned well, some weren't so good. So they all, at the moment, have different strengths. And these ones are definitely on the weaker side. But they'll gain vigor. I mean, it's just a matter of time. Those roots growing in there really nicely, and they'll be growing really well eventually. Yeah, so there's not a lot I can do on these. They just haven't grown shoots like the other ones. I can clear away some of the moss at the base of the trees. I'll just pull that out. Some of the weeds. I sure enjoy working on these forests. I really like it. Okay. So I think I've got most of these larch pruned up just fine. Just a bit more on this back one, and that'll be that. And the rain is holding off so far. That's kind of nice. Here's a look at the mixed bog forest now. So I've got all the larch trees pruned up. So now I'm going to begin work on the spruce. But first, I'm going to water the planting. All right, here I go. I'll spin the forest around and I can work on the spruce trees from the back. All right, so it'll be very similar to the larch. You know, I'm going to prune my long extensions back. And then any shoots that aren't growing in a good direction, I'll prune off. One's sticking straight up or going funny directions. You know, always replacing them with better branches if possible. And again, trying to get that tight conical form. So I think most of the work on these spruce will be up in the apex here. A lot of new shoots have grown in. So I've got to prune them back, keeping that tight conical form. And these spruce are also gaining vigor. Every month they gain vigor, and certainly every year, which is nice to see them gaining vigor and strengthening up. Because you never know, you know, I did a fairly severe root pruning on a lot of these, so you just never know how well they recover. I'm just glad they all did. So you can see I'm going quite tight with the pruning in the apex here. And I may have to thin this. It's getting pretty bushy up here. I have a lot of branches. Too many, I think. I'm replacing some of the thicker ones with new shoots, thinner new shoots. That keeps your apex a little more delicate looking and more miniature, so it doesn't thicken up in the apex. Because just like with the larch, you know, these apex will be a problem to keep them thin. I'll always have to be replacing branches with new ones. Here's a really thick one here. I'm just going to take it right off. It's too thick. I got better thin shoots in the apex here. So again, trying to prune back to that tight conical form. Keeping each tree looking like an individual tree so it just doesn't become like a mass of green, like a big green bush. Now, it's going to be hard with this planting because, you know, there's a lot of trees in here and they're not very big. So I got to keep all these trees pretty compact. Lots of weeds back here too. Which, you know, they kind of look nice. They blend in with the forest quite nicely, but you really got to watch weeds. They get out of hand quickly. They look really nice to scale when they're young, and then you turn your back and then they grow into giant weeds and they're hard to pull out. So it's best to get rid of them. And then, you know, maybe just before a show or something, if you have a few weeds, you can leave them in there because they look to scale. But yeah, weeds tend to grow really quickly. Got a bit of liverwort back here. Pull that out. Yeah, so I've got the first tree pruned up, and it's a very tight cylindrical or conical form. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. You know, considering these trees were fairly wide when I first got them. So I'm going to work away at all the other spruce in the forest, getting them tight and conical. There's a lot of growth in this side here. These two trees especially are very vigorous. So yeah, I'll have to really go after these ones. So that's what I'll do. I'll work away and then we'll come back and see what it's all looking like. It's important to let, you know, the trees gain vigor before you prune them back. You know, a weak tree, if you prune it back, it's not going to grow and recover. Okay, so I think I got this first spruce here pruned up. It's looking quite nice. So these spruce are turning quite bluish, and I think my theory is that it's to do with how much light they get. The more light they get, the bluer they turn, and that's something the tree does. It puts a coating on the needles, and it helps protect it from intense light, so they kind of reflects more light. I think that's what it is. Because you'll find trees growing in poor light conditions don't get blue needles, but if they're in full sun, the needles will turn blue. From what I've observed anyway. I'm surprised, you know, I pruned this forest just a month ago, and there's a lot of pruning to do today. I didn't think there'd be so much. I thought it'd be just kind of cleaning up some of the tips, but there's a lot of work I can do, which is good. It means the tree is making progress, steps forward. It is raining, but very, very lightly. So far, anyway. So here comes the apex off. Again, I don't want it to get too crowded in the apex. Take some of these thicker, older branches out. Keep my younger, new ones. These trees were all donated by Jonathan. Remember Jonathan from the birch forest we put together? We'll get an update, and I'll go visit Jonathan eventually. I'm hoping to get there this spring. This one larch that I haven't pruned will be a little distracting to the overall picture, but that will come. Patience, you know. Gotta let it get established, and then I can prune it. At least when it's raining like this, there's no one out mowing their lawn. So it's kind of nice and quiet out here, which I like. It's very peaceful. I've got the forest all pruned up just in time. It's starting to rain and it's getting dark out. So let's fly in now and see how it looks. I'm happy with the progress of this forest. This is year 2 after creating this forest or putting it all together, and I think it's beginning to look quite nice. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.